Hello, guys. Let's get everything started and make sure I can find everybody. We'll be all set. Okay, so I am pretty stinking excited about today. I've been wanting to do a training on systems for a really long time. Um, this is kind of what I live for. I like totally geek out at nighttime and can stay up for just hours figuring more systems out, writing lists, all of that kind of stuff. Right. So the important thing that we need to take away from today is systems, processes, the management of everything. Um, when you don't know where to start, or even worse, you've been doing this for a while and now your business is kind of a mess. You don't know where to go. You don't know where to start. You don't know how to clean things up. It's the worst thing in the world. But I'm going to let you in on a little tiny little secret, which is not so tiny. When you have these things in place, it's not just about being able to hire a team member easier, right? And even if you're a one-person show, you don't think is going to be anytime soon that you're going to be hiring somebody. It's still something you have to think about, right? We had a training on how to think like a CEO a few weeks back that you guys can go back and watch. We always have to be thinking of that forward momentum in our business. So when you do hire somebody, or if you've got people already and you're planning on bringing a new person in, it's not just about being able to hand them a system and know that it's going to be done the way you want it done, when it's supposed to be done, and just being able to get them started sooner and being able to give those A players a chance to actually win in your company. It's not just about that stuff. It's also about saving you time. And I'm going to share with you some stories that happened even just last night because I didn't follow my own advice on something and something went kind of true, like haywire on things. But even more than that, SOPs, the systems that you build out in your business are an actual true business asset, right? I don't know if you guys watch like Shark's Tank or Dragon's Den or anything like that, but when those kind of people go into businesses and they're looking at, years down the road when you're potentially going to sell something or anything like that, they're looking for how easy is it going to be for me to come in, right? When you bring on a partner, anything like that. It's kind of like the difference between if you buy a house, right? And you do nothing in it. You do no renovations, you do no upgrades. You walk in and it looks like it's something out of the 80s, which you kind of love, but right, that house is going to be a lot harder to sell because somebody else has to come in and do all of the work that should have been done over the last 10, 15, 20 years that you own the house versus having a house where you can say, you know what, you can just move in because the renovations are done, the upgrades are done, it's decorated nicely, you can just move in and get things going, right? So you can just move in and do what you need to do. That's what we need to do for our business. We have to get it to a point, whether you ever plan on selling or not, it doesn't matter. And for our network marketers out there, if you're like, Dawn, we don't sell our companies like that, then you're just doing it wrong. And that's where brand soldiers come into, because we talk and teach a lot about creating this kind of legacy business, which in the short term makes everything that you're doing in your network marketing company like a million times easier. But that's a topic for another day. So before I forget, I do have things to give you guys today. So one, the template that I'm going to be showing you guys and talking you through and creating the SOPs, it's available in the Entrepreneur's Vault. So if you type the vault, all one word, down below, I will make sure that you get a free account to get access to that. It's super cool. I'll talk to you guys about it later, but there's more than just your SOPs in there. So I'll make sure you get access to that one. The show notes for this. So instead of like taking furious notes, I mean, take notes for sure. Always want to do that. But the show notes for this is going to be available probably, I'm hoping, in the next day or two. So if you want to make sure that you have access to those ones, type in remind me, all one word, remind me. It is one word. And I'll make sure that you get a copy of those when those are ready too. Okay, so let's dive into this. We talked last week about the buckets of business, right? And you can go back and watch that whole video, but I'll just quickly, briefly show you how you're going to divide up your day, because it's important to know what's going on in your day. And it's going to help you to, one, know what SOPs you have to create, and two, be able to help you figure out which one to actually create first, right? That's a big deal. So there's 4 buckets in your business, and these are not my things. We know everything's out there is the same thing, but these particular words or buckets are actually the words of Run Like Clockwork. Do, decide, delegate, and design. Okay, so again, there's a whole video from last week you can go back and watch. The do is you're actually executing the task. If you're a solopreneur, everything in the world is on the do side of things, right? Deciding is when you're assigning a task to somebody, but you're not assigning the decisions to them. This is where a lot of people get stuck, because they think that they're going to hire a VA and they're going to get everything off their plate. And then they wonder, why is everything taking so much more time? It's just easier for me to do it myself, because then it's done quicker. It's done when I want it. It's done when I need it. And it's done the way I want it done, right? So a lot of people never move past decide. They get stuck in that section. And the problem is that you are telling them, yes, I need you to go and create these graphics, but all of the decisions, all of the outcomes from that particular task are still on your plate, right? They're going to come back and say, hey, I need you to approve this, or I need you to write copy for it, or I need you to take some of this, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. There's a whole whack of things that are in there. The third bucket is delegate. This is where we'd love to get, where we think we're getting with hiring people. And that's when we're actually assigning an outcome to somebody else, right? So it's not just about, here's the task that I want you to create. It's, here's what I need. I need graphics for social media for the upcoming show I'm doing. And they go out and they write the copy. They make the decisions about it. Everything is off your plate. You just know that in a week, you're going to have everything that you need from that. That's where we think we're getting. And then the very last one is where everybody truly wants to live eventually, when you get things moving in the right direction, and that's designing. So thinking about the big strategy, your vision for the company, what's going to be the next big thing that you're going to be doing, right? So those are your 4 buckets. So you have to figure out what your goal is. When it comes to systems, you need to still have goals. But interesting little tidbit that I read from James Clear, and I'm going to paraphrase it because he has a much more clean and not so potty mouth way of talking about this. But goals are shit, right? So if you're going to be running a race, an Olympic marathon, right? Everybody that shows up there has a goal. They have goals of how they're going to be doing their training, how they're going to get to the Olympics, how they're going to do there. But every single winner and every single loser has a goal, right? So it's great to have goals. I'm not saying don't do them, but we can't get stuck at leaving it at the goals. You have to have something beyond that, because a goal is just a momentary win, a moment in time, right? So even if I was an Olympic athlete and I run that race and I win that race, I've achieved my goal. Now what, right? If you lose, now what? Right? Goals are momentary little pieces of time, and whether you win them or lose them, it doesn't really so much matter about things. The true progress actually happens. He calls it from habits, right? Because that's what he's all about. Atomic Habits is his book. Amazing. But from my perspective, it's systems, right? So we have goals in our business, but the way that we get there is our systems. Okay. So what is your goal when you're thinking about it? Now, when it comes to businesses, if it's just you, your goal is to spend less time figuring shit out. And it might seem like a really silly thing, but let me tell you, last night I was creating new content for the show notes. I was trying to get everything prepped up for those ones for today. And I needed to do a pop-up. Now, if you guys watched, I don't know if I put it on my page, but definitely in the Brand Soldiers Facebook group, I was talking about making the move from X theme to Divi. And I've got experience using Divi a little bit, but I've never had to build my entire site on it. So anyway, I had to do these pop-ups, and I know that I had done them on the home page and they worked beautifully. I'm like, okay, how did I do that? I went into so many things. I spent 40 minutes, guys, 40 minutes trying to remember how I did this stupid freaking pop-up, because I didn't follow my own rules. I didn't say, okay, I figured something out. I'm going to document that so the next time I need to do it, it's going to be easy to figure out. Now I figured, oh, this is going to be fine. It's just me. I don't have time. I got something else I want to do, something else I need to do, and I didn't document it. And then it cost me almost an hour of my time last night, because once you figure everything out, now you actually have to do it, right? An hour of my time because I didn't document something. Instead of just saying, you know what, here's the document for it, go pull that up. Okay, got it. Step, 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 step. Done. 10 minutes worth of my time, right? So when it's just you, the less time that you can spend trying to figure stuff out, the more free time you have. And that free time can be spent doing whatever the hell you want, working in your business, whatever. If you've got a team, it is still about saving time, but it's all about those 4 buckets of business, right? It's moving your company and yourself into the next D, into the next bucket. Okay, so those are your actual goals. So what I want to spend the most of the time today is kind of figuring out and understanding and training you guys properly how to create SOPs, because I've seen all kinds. I've seen things that are super down and dirty because it's coming from my brain. It's dropping onto a paper for me to remember, and I think it's going to be okay. And it's like 4 quick little brief bullet points just to kind of remind me and tickle my brain about how to do things. And I've seen ones that are pages long, because every single step has multiple screenshots of everything. Neither one of them is the best option. In my opinion, you can do whatever the heck you want, but in my opinion, neither one of those are very good. You need something in the middle of both of those things. So let me show you the best way that I've found to create SOPs. And this works not only for myself when I actually do things, not the pop-up ones, which I do have an SOP on doing now, by the way. But even with clients, whether the clients are like 1 or 2 people on the team, or dozens of people on the team, this template that I'm going to show you, the things that we're going to walk through today, it works across the board. Okay, so if it's going to work for 1 person, if it's going to work for 3 people, if it's going to work for a multi-million company with dozens of people, it's going to work for you too, right? So let's figure it out. So we're going to do this a little story-based, because I find that it makes a heck of a lot more sense when we can actually understand it, especially if this is the first time you've ever created any kind of standard operating procedures in your business. So let's say, I'm going to pick on my kids today. Let's say I tell my kids that every single morning I want them to make sure that they are making a pot of coffee for me, because Lord loves my coffee, right? Now, if I just told them, hey, there's 3 of them, pot of coffee every single morning by 8 a.m., there's going to be chaos, right? One of them is going to turn around and say, well, I don't know how to make coffee. You're going to have another one who's going to say, oh, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do it that way, right? And then we have the other one who's going to be like, I thought somebody else was going to do it, right? That's what ends up happening when you just say, hey, go do this, right? Team member, go do this. Go create a graphic. You're going to get everything under the sun if you just randomly assign a task to somebody, right? So what do you have to do? First, you have to decide who's going to be in charge of this, right? So now if I say, Spencer, you are in charge of making me a pot of coffee every single morning by 8 a.m. Okay, now we know that Spencer's going to make the coffee every single day, right? So we've got one of those problems right out of the way. You've got to get specific. Sometimes, especially when it's things that we know, and as entrepreneurs, we know what the heck we're doing, right? We know what's going on. We don't need that. But when you've got other people that are doing things for you, you need to be very specific in things. The things that you think are common sense, not so common sense to everybody else, right? So we put everything in there in a way that's going to make sense and not make it 15 pages long. Okay, so we tell them what you're going to need to gather up, because I don't want to wake up tomorrow morning and find out the coffee's not made because they didn't have all the things that they needed. No point in starting something if you don't have everything you're going to need, right? So I give them a list. You're going to need fresh water. You're going to need coffee filters. You're going to need the coffee grounds. You're going to need the coffee maker. You're going to have to make sure there's electricity on, right? Those are the things you need to have access to in order to complete this task, right? And then he needs to know the steps, because I've made coffee without coffee grounds before. It's not very good, right? It's not tasty at all. So you give them the steps. First, you're going to fill the reservoir with the fresh water. Then you're going to put the filter into the basket. And then you're going to put X amount of coffee into the filter. You're going to plug the coffee machine in. You're going to turn it on, and you're going to wait for the coffee to brew. You need to make sure that the coffee is actually going to brew, right? Those are the actual steps. But let's be honest. My kid does not give a rat's ass if I have coffee in the morning. He doesn't drink it. He doesn't have any kind of problems with it, but it does kind of affect him if he doesn't do his job, right? So I might tell him, you know what, I need to have this coffee because I don't have enough time to get things done in the morning. If I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time to make you breakfast, or I don't have time to drop you off at school. I don't have time to make you your breakfast, maybe, right? I'm going to be super bitchy, and that's going to affect you too, right? So we make it about them, because I think it's important that I have coffee every morning. He doesn't, not just by that task, but if I put it in a way that he's going to understand, if you can make the coffee for me, then this good thing is going to happen, right? On a team member, we'll go deeper into this a little bit later, but just from a team member's perspective, it's all about making it about their job, right? So if you can do this, what good things do we have? Okay? Answering the phone. If you've got somebody who's going to be answering your phone or your text messages or anything like that, why does it matter if they answer it this way versus the way that they want to, right? What happens with that? We want our customers to feel valued. We want our customers to make sure that they know that we're here. If they don't, people stop coming to us. People start hating us, and then you don't have a job because I don't have any money coming into the business, right? So they have to have a reason or a purpose behind what it is they're doing, okay? They also need to know if there's certain policies in place, because we cannot expect anybody, not even ourselves, to remember everything. So if I have a policy that, hey, on the weekends, we need to make a full pot of coffee. During the week, we only make half a pot of coffee. Or if mom and dad are home, we make a full pot of coffee. If only one of them's home, we make a half pot of coffee, right? So we have policies that might be in place that are related to that particular task that you're going to be assigning out to them, okay? It's never good enough to just put things on paper. Never good enough. And let me tell you, that was ridiculous. And now I'm on, I don't even know. We're going to take this whole thing off because I have a separate webcam. It's way better than this one. Oh, my goodness. And I think somewhere we just kind of killed it. It died. And as I'm watching the whole thing, I saw the blue light go off and it didn't even occur to me. So this is take 2 of the actual training that we're going to be doing. Holy smokes, guys. We're going to have to do a whole new one of these ones. Let me go back to where I think we might have lost everything. So we talked about the free things that you guys are going to get when you drop the vault, all one word in there. You're going to get access to the Entrepreneur's Vault, where you are going to get training and a template that you can actually use and manage for your own business. So you drop the vault, all one word, down below, and you'll get access to that alongside of like a zillion other things that are in there. The show notes for this that are going to be ready in a day or two, if you type in remind me, all one word, I'll make sure that you guys get those ones too. So this is what happens when we do live video, right? Like, you can't plan for shit like this. So we talked about the buckets of business: do, decide, delegate, and design. We talked about goals and how they're basically shit, because winners and losers both have goals. we need something more than that. Habits, systems, right? Then we started talking about, and this is where we'll start today, because I think this is where we lost everything, is how to actually create the SOP. So I was giving you guys a story so that we could relate a little bit easier to this in terms of creating an SOP for my children, right? So if I tell my kids, I want a pot of coffee made every single day, there's going to be chaos, right? 3 kids, one of them's going to tell me that they don't know how to make it at all. Another one's going to say, oh, I thought we weren't supposed to do it that way. I thought it was this way. And then the third one's going to be like, I thought somebody else was doing it, right? That's what happens when we just say, go and do this. So we start off by assigning a responsibility to it. So if I say, Spencer, you're going to make coffee every single morning, now we know that Spencer's going to be the one in charge. We have cleared off one of our barriers, right? But they need to know what they need access to. Nothing worse than having coffee that is made the wrong way. So we need to make sure that, just like with baking and cooking, if you don't have everything you need, if you don't have flour and you're going to make a cake, kind of important to stop, right? So we need to tell them, you're going to have fresh water, coffee filters, coffee grounds, coffee maker, electricity, right? We get really, really super specific about all those things because we don't leave anything to chance. We also tell them what the steps are in order. Because I've done them wrong. I forgot to put coffee grounds in before, or in my K-machine, K-cups, right? Forgot to put the little K-cup in there. It's awful. It's gross. So we tell them, you're going to fill up the reservoir with fresh water. You're going to put the filter into the basket. You're going to put this much coffee into there. You're going to plug it in. You're going to turn it on, and you're going to wait until the coffee actually starts to brew, right? But my kids don't give a rat's ass whether or not I have coffee. Same thing's going to be true when you are creating an SOP. Now, don't get stuck in the idea of, you know what, I'm only creating it for me, so I'm going to skip this part. Don't. Because one day you have a goal of having a business that's bigger than it is right now. So why would you do everything today just based on today? Right? So don't skip this part. You need to give people a reason to care about doing things. Because otherwise it's just this long list of chores that they have to do, as opposed to having a real reason that matters to them. They don't care about you. Do they want the company to do well? Yeah, sure, I guess. But at the end of the day, they don't give a shit. Right? So if I tell them, you know what, if I don't have coffee, I'm not going to have time to make your breakfast, or make your breakfast smoothie, or drop you off at school, drop you off at work. I'm going to be super bitchy, and that's not going to go well for you either, right? So we give them a reason, a purpose behind why they need to do this and why it needs to be done in a certain way, right? So if you're talking about answering a phone or answering emails or answering text messages on your behalf, eventually, over time, human nature, we tend to slide a little bit, right? We tend to slide a bit. It's just the way things happen. What's the best way of explaining this? If you don't give them specifics in what they need to do, okay, they are going to have, a harder time doing it. They're going to have a harder time actually doing it the way you want them to do it. When it comes to those emails, texts, or phone calls, they know it's part of their job. You don't have to remind them, usually, to answer the email or text. What do you have to make it clear to? Right? Why do we do it? And why do I ask you to do it in this way? If they understand that, hey, when we add this, so in our support desk with one of my clients, one of the things that I want them to do is what we call just one question. Right? So whatever we're promoting at that time, right now it's a copy of our book, right? So when we resolve a ticket, at the end, you've come to me, you needed support, I've helped you, I've fulfilled everything that you needed. Now I'm going to have just one question for you. By the way, have you grabbed a copy of our book yet? Right? It's really easy for people to forget those little parts of things because to them it might not make sense. They don't care about it, right? So they're not going to actually do anything. If we explain to them, we need to start selling more things, because if we don't, I can't keep the team at the same level. It might mean a reduction in hours for you. It might mean a lost job, right? We need to get to the next goal so that I can continue to employing you. When we send out this just one question, it's a very non-salesy way of being able to promote ourselves, and there's a little bit of reciprocity. So if you've read any of my previous blog posts and articles, you'll know a little bit about how much I love human behavior and using human psychology. It's important in sales. Go back and find those things, go and read them. But reciprocity is one of the big ones that we lean on heavily when it comes to sales, right? They've come to me because they had some kind of a question, some kind of a support. They needed help. I fulfilled that. And now I'm gonna push just a tiny bit. I'm going to ask them, do you have a copy of my book, right? So we always make sure that we are explaining why things matter, preferably in a way that's going to allow them to internalize it, right? If they know that they don't make coffee, mom gets bitchy, and that makes your day super, super horrible, or you don't get your breakfast, you now have to grab something out of the fridge, or you have to now walk to school or walk to work, that makes it more personal, which is even better when it comes to SOPs. Okay, so the other thing they need to know is whether or not there's specific policies in place. So you have to do a little bit of thought process here. What else do they need to know when it comes to completing this task? So with the coffee, maybe it's, you know what, weekdays we need half a pot of coffee. Or when mom and dad are both home, we make a full pot of coffee, right? So we have little policies that are in place. So give some thought process to what policies are in place in your business when it comes to creating this task and doing this task. Now, it's not enough to just put it on paper and hand it over, because people get overwhelmed. They look at things, they think they get it, they keep on going, they don't actually do it right. If the first time somebody does something wrong, it's not corrected, there's a greater chance that they're going to keep doing it wrong. And then it becomes a habit to do it wrong until somebody notices and usually gives them shit. And they're like, this is how I've done it since the day I started, right? Think about your kids. Now, we always say, oh, who cares, right? The kids are folding their laundry. Who cares if it's not perfect? What happens if you never correct anything? It's always going to be that way until somebody, and that somebody could be you, it could be a YouTube video that somebody says, hey, let me show you the right way to fold a towel. And they're like, holy crap, I've been doing it wrong my whole life, right? So you actually have to train them on things. So the first time that he goes out, maybe he goes to make the coffee and he forgets to, I don't know, put the grounds inside the coffee filter. Kind of a big thing, right? So you are there to help him along with things. You need to make sure that every step, every barrier that happens, you've got to look at your SOP and you've got to be able to update it, right? So training your team, there's like 3 things that you need to do, right? So 1, you need to show them how it's done. Then you're going to watch them, right? So allowing them to go in and make the mistakes, right? And then, you're going to, let's start again. You're going to show them how to do it. Then you're going to help them do it. Then you're going to watch them do it. So one of my clients trains restaurant owners, and huge on systems too, which is why we get along so dang well. But his words for these ones are, I do, we do, you do. So I do, right? I'm going to show you exactly perfection how to do this task. We do, so we're going to start doing it. And this is where they need to start making mistakes. They need to start to remember for themselves, right? And then you do. They need to be able to do it without fail correctly. So let me tell you a little story. One of the very first jobs I ever had was at Fantastic Sam's. I was in high school and I was the receptionist. So I would clean up hair. I would, greet people as they came in, answer the phones, all that kind of stuff. After the first couple of hours that I was there, somebody comes in and they're just off the street. They're not here for a haircut or anything like that. They just want to buy this product. It's like, hey, Patty, what do I do? I don't know what to do with this one. All I know is how to ring out people when they've had colors or cuts or things like that. It's like, great, okay, let me show you how to do it. She showed me exactly how to do it. What needed to be filled out on the little form, how it went into the cash register, how everything went back to the customer. And then she told me, we actually get a 30% commission on these ones. She says, that one was mine. You are the one who should be getting all of these commissions. But you have to do this without any help if you want to get the commission. So the next person that came in, I was like, oh man, this is a great way for, a 16-year-old to get some extra cash, right? So I'm going to get all of these people. So not only did it make sure that I was greeting every person that came in, because I didn't want somebody else greeting them, because then one of the hairstylists, one, that's not what they should be doing. They're with clients. They're doing their own thing. But two, I wanted to make sure I was getting the commission too. I needed to figure out how to do it. So the next person that came in couldn't quite figure it out. Almost got it. They came over, changed it. It was their commission. Shit, right? But as soon as I started to get it, as soon as I could do it on my own, they would still watch over me, right? Making sure that I was doing it correctly. But then I was able to get that commission, right? So it followed the same thing. I'm going to show you how to do it. Watch, take notes, ask questions. Now we're going to do it together, okay? You try it. Oh, no, no, got to do this way, right? And then you do it. They watch me complete it perfectly, and then it was all mine, right? So we have to train our team members in the exact same way, right? Really, really important, guys. The other thing to remember is you have to be following the same systems. There is nothing worse, and there is nothing more infuriating than here's the policy, and every single team member follows the same policy. Every single team member does this the exact same way. And then the owner of the company comes in and they're like, no, I own the company. I'm doing it my own dang way, right? It's infuriating, but it can also create problems, personnel problems. So let's say you have somebody that's going to be managing your calendar, and their job is to book you all of your travel, right? They're going to book the planes. They're going to book the hotels. They're going to do all of the things that need to be done. And they have an SOP that shows them, these are the airlines that I like to go to. In this city, these are the hotels that I like to be in. This is the seat I prefer to sit in the airplane. And if that's not available, get me this one. I like this kind of room. I want this kind of thing added to my itinerary, right? If they have all of this and they start doing it, they've been doing great. 2 months, they book all of your travel. Then one day you say, you know what? I'm just going to book it myself, right? Like, I'm not going to bother that person. I'm just going to go and do it myself. I'm here. I'm just going to do it. And you don't do the same things. You book with a different airline. You book things wrong because, surprise, business owners do shit wrong all the freaking time, especially when we stop doing things every single day, right? Not only is it going to create more work for that person to go back and fix, but it creates instability in that relationship. They instantly start thinking, why did they book it? Why wouldn't they just send it to me? Am I doing things wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Am I getting fired? Am I in trouble? Why didn't he just have me do it? Right? Not only did he not do it right, but he did it himself. And now what's wrong with that? Right? So we have to make sure that we're following things ourselves, not only for those reasons, but also just to make sure that across the board we have the same things. Right? Your client goes in and starts to build out a page and they do it half-assed. They do it wrong. They didn't build it right. Now you got to go back and you got to find all the errors, fix it all up, make it look like all of the other posts and pages that you have in there. It's a nightmare. You have to build the same things. You can't leave your team feeling like you have one set of rules and they have another set of rules. This is how he does it, but we all have to do it this way. Right? So you have to have that consistency across the board with there. Okay? Evaluating everything is super important too. These are not a one done and go kind of thing. It's just not the way it is. It can't be like that. It's ridiculous, right? There are barriers that are going to come up. There are changes that are going to happen. Over time, shit needs to be reevaluated and fixed and edited and all that kind of stuff, right? So you have to make sure that you have a regular schedule to review those SOPs, making sure, are we still using all the same things? Do these things make sense? Is there ways that we can make things more efficient? right? So if you think back to our example of the kids making the coffee, if over time we renovate the kitchen or we reorganize the kitchen, and Spencer comes back and says, hey, I'm spending like way more time having to make this because now all my shit's in different spots and I have to move this over here and I have to unplug this, right? He identifies barriers that we can edit, that we can correct, that we can brainstorm, and now we have a more efficient process, right? You might find over time that your coffee just isn't as hot anymore, right? It doesn't brew as quickly, or there's problems in the process. When you have to invest in something new, that often comes from evaluating a process, realizing that this coffee pot is no longer our best tool, or perhaps there's something wrong with it, right? If you've got systems like outside of SOPs, guys, one of the biggest things that I see people do is they're like, I've got an idea, I'm going to automate the shit out of it. That's what they do. It's a bad idea. Always do things manually and then automate because shit hits the fan, right? So if you think, maybe we can do a whole training on this one. If something isn't going to work manually and you automate it, it's going to just make that one little problem humongous. If you've even got just 300 people on your list, okay, and you automatically have something happen, it's not going to happen for 1 or 2 people. It's going to happen for 300 people. Now imagine you've got a list of 100,000, and instead of it happening for just a handful of people, or maybe 1 or 2 people, it's happening to 100 freaking thousand people, right? Don't automate first, please. But I have to figure out where I was going with that one because I get on tangents, right? Surprise, that's not my thing at all. It doesn't really matter. We have to make sure that we are finding the most efficient way of doing things. We have to make sure that we're identifying barriers of things. And the only way that you do that is by reviewing and evaluating your SOPs and your automations, the things that you take for granted, right? It just gets done. Maybe there's a better way, but we don't go back and look at it because it's getting it done. Doesn't necessarily matter. You always have to make sure that you're going back and evaluating things. Okay? So, sorry guys. To review, your SOP has to have the name of the person that's going to be responsible for it. The person's also going to be the main go-to person for the review and evaluation. I do like, we'll talk about that at the end. Name of the person responsible, a list of the things that they need access to, any of the related kind of policies, the purpose of the SOP, the purpose of the task, right? Identify how it matters to the company. And if you can move it back to why it matters to them, that's even freaking better because they're not going to get it if it's some random out in the ethers kind of thing, right? You are going to have a list of your steps, right? The process and procedures, actually how to do the task, and you're going to have a plan to review and evaluate it. I like to have somebody who does not do the task review the SOP. We started doing this with one of our clients because I'm going to scan through it because I do this task every single day and I'm not going to catch the problems. A fresh set of eyes goes a long way. I can't even tell you. So when you have a person who normally answers the phone, go in and try to create an email broadcast. Guarantee the person who's going to find the problems is going to be the person that never does the task because they got questions. They've got questions about things, and that's where you find the holes and the problems inside of your processes and your systems. Okay? Make sure that you are training your team. One of the big things that, again, my client Ryan, who works with restaurant owners and other businesses, he gets a lot of flack when it comes to checklists. Big fan of like paper checklists printed off every single day, and nobody wants to ever do it. Or they do it, but they use it almost to like hold over people's heads, right? I now have something on paper that I can go back and criticize you about. Okay? We have to make sure that our SOPs are almost part of our culture. So let me explain what that means. If the culture of your business is that you want people to come in, you want them to be A players, you want them to be able to succeed, you want them to have autonomy, you don't want them to feel like they are being micromanaged. The culture is, here's what we need to do, here's how we do it, we have to have consistency, and as long as you're doing these things, you're always going to be great, right? If you can build that into your culture so that doing an SOP, checking off a checklist, is no longer a fearsome thing, then the rest of everything that you have to teach these people is going to be freaking peanuts. Absolute peanuts. Last thing I want to talk about is how to know which one to create first, because as soon as you go through those 4 buckets of business, the do, decide, delegate, and design, you're going to realize, because this is not also, it's not like a one-day thing, because as you do things for the first time in the week, tomorrow you're going to realize that, oh shit, I forgot to put things on my list, right? You're going to have a lot on there, and it's going to be super overwhelming, and that's number one reason why people don't actually start creating their systems. Now, you can go out and hire somebody to do these. It's going to be very timely, and it's going to be very expensive. Just saying. But how do we know which one to start with so we don't get overwhelmed? Because you have to start somewhere, folks. You do, right? That's common sense. That's not nothing new. Thanks, Don, right? So you can think of it in a couple ways. One, what D are you on? If everything is under do and you want to start moving everything to decide, what's something from there? If you've got things that are all in different spots, what's the next stage that you want to go to? Okay? And you can combine that with, you can start with what's easiest. I don't care. I don't really care. But if you're looking for the most efficient way of doing things and the most profitable way of doing things, which SOP can you create? Which system can you create that's going to improve your customer satisfaction? That's going to increase your revenues or your profits, right? Start with something like that. Okay? SOPs, when you break them down, when you have the template that I'm going to share with you guys, when you have all of that, it becomes so much easier. So much freaking easier. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth and show the template when I go live in the Brand Soldiers Facebook group in a little bit. But it's super easy too. It's just, you have to sit down and you have to start working through the things that you're already doing. It's excruciating sometimes because we have to slow ourselves down. And one of the reasons that we do everything ourselves is because it's quicker, right? So the thought of having to like slow yourself down is frustrating as hell. I've got tips on that. I'm going to share it with my private members because they get all the very best things. But I want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope this was super duper helpful for you, even though it's chopped into 2 and now we're on this cruddy like webcam thing and not even the good one. I'm super disappointed about that, but that's what happens in real life and live video. So if you did find this helpful, I would so appreciate you sharing it. I want to make sure that more people are doing the things that they need to do. And I know this was a lot of information, especially split into 2 stinking videos. So sorry, guys. But don't forget, the show notes are going to be available in the next couple of days. Maybe a little bit longer since I now have 2 videos that I have to figure out what I'm going to do with. But they are going to be ready. And if you type in all one word, remind me, all one word, I'm going to make sure that you get a copy of those as soon as I have them ready. And don't forget that the copy of the SOP template, along with some extra training, is available inside the Entrepreneur's Vault, which is also free. All you have to do is type in the vault, all one word, in the comments below, and I will get you free access to that. That is, by the way, I think I mentioned in the beginning of the first video, that's not confusing at all. The Entrepreneur's Vault is a massive resource library. It's got all of my best trainings, checklists, worksheets, all kinds of stuff in there. It now has all of the SOP training in there, as well as the actual SOP template that you're going to need to make all of this work. And it's way easier than what you think. It's just a little time consuming, but I'm going to go live in just a few minutes, and I will talk to you next Thursday.